should I have like?
Welcome to Media Path. I'm Fritz Coleman.
And I'm Louise Palanker.
Welcome to a new year here on Media Path. I hope your New Year's resolutions include joining and liking our YouTube content and, of course, catching up on back episodes of the podcast on all of its platforms. We ended last year with a bang. We had guests like rock critic and author Robert Hilburn talking about his new biography on Randy Newman. We had actor Bruce Davison. We had author Joel Brokaw, who wrote a beautiful biography about his dad, Norman Brokaw, who was the CEO at the William Morris Agency. Tons of great content, which should be a new leaf that you turn over in 2025. Please join us on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe, and if you truly want to make us beam with joy, leave a comment. We've gotten some great ones lately on several very memorable interviews, like Penny Seidel, 3686, said Lorenzo Lamas did a great job in his interview. He's a great actor, and I have and am still watching most of everything he's done and is doing today. I love me some Lorenzo Lamas. He's looking good. He does look good, and we don't like people that are, that attractive coming on this show because it's intimidating. Our one on Cammie Kotler from @PinkParasol Lisa 9646. That's a long handle. What a wonderful podcast. Cammie is awesome, and I love the 70s collectible lunchboxes items on your set. That's all Wheezy's collection, and it's been decades since I saw Fritz do the weather. There's no reason to point out how old I am. We want to thank you for listening and watching on your favorite platform, and we look forward to bringing you more great conversations in the next year. Now, I got to tell you this. We pride ourselves in our outstanding guests, and today's is one of the best. We're very excited to welcome Linda Blair. Of course, an actor in maybe the most blood-curdling horror series ever committed to film, The Exorcist 1, 2, and 3. But the most heroic and productive part of her life has been her work as an animal advocate. She works to protect dogs from euthanasia. She finds them good forever homes. She advocates for animal rights. She's testified in front of Congress. We're going to talk about her and all the wonderful work she does in just a few minutes. Miss Linda's with us right now. I'm trying not to stare at her as I read. Wheezy, what do you have?
She's very beautiful, maybe perhaps more beautiful than Lorenzo Lamas, if I may.
Well, now.
Be so bold. Okay, so Fritz, I was going to talk about the SNL movie, which I'm obsessed with, but this week, instead I decided, because Linda's our guest, somehow I just felt like this was a good fit, to talk about a podcast called the Telepathy Tapes. The Telepathy Tapes is a new podcast from Kai Dickens, which makes the bold claim that autistic non-speakers possess the ability to read minds. Now, if your initial reaction is, well then, why didn't they say so? Think for a beat and we will move on. If you are able to suspend your disbelief long enough to take your well-prove-it attitude into the first episode, you will come to understand that the reason non-speakers can't speak is that they have very little control of their physical bodies. They can't do fine motor functions like speaking, sign language, or typing. Really, it's as if a huge part of them remains outside their bodies. They can, however, learn to communicate by pointing to letters using a method called spelling. But this practice has come under question because they require a teacher or a parent to touch their body and ground them. Skeptics felt that they were being guided and discouraged this practice. But something happened during the pandemic. Away from schools, many non-speakers began using letterboards and iPads to communicate with their families. We know that this happened with our friend Jacob Rock, who at 16 began writing poetry and then a symphony. The first words he spelled were, "I'm smart." Non-speakers need us to know that they are in there and that placing them in classrooms that teach shapes and colors is ridiculous and cruel. They are more intelligent than most of us. And through this series, we come to understand that non-speakers often possess astonishing gifts of knowledge, wisdom, languages, history, philosophy, and deep spiritual perceptions. However, here on Earth, our scientific community is guided and measured through peer-reviewed research. Accepted and published studies must meet specific standards to be considered sound. It is very difficult to meet these standards with non-speakers who have so little control of their physical bodies. Additionally, the knee-jerk reaction is to reject anything that tips our physical material world view inside out. Mind reading was always the stuff of science fiction. The Telepathy Tapes has been both scorned and embraced. A point in their favor is that they've knocked Joe Rogan out of the top podcast spot. Ironic on many levels.
God bless him.
Yes, ironic on many levels because non-speakers are desperate for us to understand that God is love and that what matters most is that we come to know that life is not about supremacy. It's about unity and collaboration.
Nice. They had Deepak Chopra in one of the episodes there. I recognized him.
Yes.
So, wow, that's fascinating.
I mean, it's astounding. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to talk about Bad Sisters.
Okay.
This is a 2-season series on Apple TV, a total of 18 episodes. It's an Irish black comedy thriller. It's about 5 Garvey sisters. It's based on a Belgian series called Clan. In general, it's about retribution against toxic men. It starts with a controlling, abusive husband of one of the sisters who ends up, what a surprise, dead. The sisters find themselves suspect in the life insurance policy following the man's death. It's all about sisters trying to eliminate dark male forces from their lives. Even though the women find themselves involved in alleged murder plots, you find yourself rooting for the women because the men are such assholes. That's where the black comedy comes in, the Irish part of it. All of the loose ends are tied up by the end of the season. By the end of season 2, it's not going to be back, so why should you watch it? Well, it's shot on location in Dublin, Ireland, beyond beautiful cinematography. It's great acting. Bono's daughter, Eve Hewson, plays Becca, the most charming, carefree, and youngest of the sisters.
Wow.
She was terrific in The Perfect Couple. Did you ever see that? I think I reviewed that.
Yeah.
Another of the several dozen streamers Nicole Kidman's involved with in the last couple of years. There are many interesting plot twists that you keep glued to. It's a very realistic dynamic between sisters. Although I am not of one of 5 sisters, I think that you will connect to this because it really is, it's very honest in how they get along and don't get along. And it's so much fun to listen to the Irish dialogue with the brogue and the profanity. As you know, profanity has a special spark when it's delivered with an accent. That's this whole series. It's called Bad Sisters on Apple TV.
Yes, excellent. I have been watching it.
You like
and
it?
So far,
it's you don't like dark
my
stuff.
sisters and I have not problem solved into our way into murder as being a possible solution. But we do have that fun overlap of sisterly dynamic that registers, and the writing is really funny. It's just that once you decide, like, hey, maybe we should just kill him, the rest of your life is going to be a big mess. It's just going to be a mess.
I know. Well, we're going to get to our guest. I'm so excited to talk to this lady. We've been friends for many years. She became famous around the world at 14 years old playing Regan in The Exorcist, a movie that made Catholics question their faith, made humans in general sleepless for weeks afterwards, freaking scary. She did the original and 2 sequels. She got a Golden Globe Award, an Oscar nomination. She was in several movies beyond that, not as scary, but some as scary as The Exorcist. She hosted a series on Fox Family Television called Scariest Places on Earth. She, however, has had an amazing second and third act in her life. She's one of the first and fiercest advocates in the animal rights movement. She has the Linda Blair Worldheart Foundation, which rescues dogs from euthanasia and finds them forever homes. She does so much on behalf of critters that can't help themselves, and we're going to talk about it all. Linda Blair, welcome to Media Path.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me.
Happy to see you, dear. You and I have known one another for a long time.
That is one of the reasons that I wanted to be here, because they don't know how many things we've done charity-wise through
You're
the years.
You're a very giving person. You're a very philanthropic person. You survived an exorcism and still became a wonderful, positive human being. So we did charity fishing trips together. I was at various places where you would be raising money for your amazing fund, and you've done some great, great work.
First, I want to just say that, Fritz, you are so beloved in this community. For those that know you, so they understand why I'm here, because you are somebody that I trust, and that's hard to find in the community and in news media and so on. But when I think back over the years, how many charity events, so I think, let's say I started maybe in my 20s and in my 30s, and giving to charity as far as of your time. Back then, there was only a few opportunities and we would show up. But it's the memories of the laughter, your incredible sense of humor, your love.
Well, thank you.
But people love you.
That was the best part of my job, doing those community outreach events. Honestly, I always thought when I put my head down at night, the idea that I helped somebody with a nonprofit was much more satisfying than being inaccurate about the weather 4 out of 5 days a week. So But anyway, you're of the same mind, and I think maybe that's why we always got along.
I believe so. I think certain people are born to give back, to volunteer. I know my mom raised me to not only, did I go to church. I'm a Protestant, but I'd go to Sunday church, blah blah blah, and at the holidays you would always give back. We'd take these tags off of the Christmas tree. This child needs mittens. This one needs a coat. This one needs this. We worked in the soup kitchen. That was back in Connecticut, which is where I'm from. Then you come out to Hollywood, and it's a whole different world.
Yeah.
Hollywood, Los Angeles, California. I think a lot of people do come here to achieve something else, to gain something else. But there are those of us that are here and we're like, but what else can we do? How do we help in our community? And I believe that that's an innate part of our personality and our humanitarianism. Because I know I can't change.
And you started your passion for animal welfare long before it became
I was born this
de
way.
rigueur. And right now, we may as well start right at the beginning, and we're going to learn some things that we didn't know before, which is going to be fun. But you testified before Congress and for legislatures, and right now there's sort of an animal welfare issue going on, right? They're trying to make it illegal to breed certain breeds, and you're fighting against it. Talk about that.
Well, what I want to say is no, I did not have the opportunity to testify in front of Congress. I have tried. Because I think it's that important. What I did do, Fritz, is I talked to our governor during the pandemic. They appreciated everything that I've done. I wrote a 14-page document. I went public. I went on news media. I did everything that I could to say, these are the laws that need enforced. This is what's going to happen coming out of the pandemic. With all the animals that are unaltered, you have an enormous amount of mothers that are giving birth to litters. And if on our end of animal welfare and the emails, it is so beyond heart-wrenching to watch what's happening. They're on the streets. They're abandoned out in the deserts. They're everywhere, and they're in the shelters constantly giving birth. There are not enough homes.
So was the issue that during the pandemic, one of the things that people didn't have the time or the space to do was to go and get their pet spayed and neutered? Or
couldn't
they
afford
money and time. The vets
couldn't afford it.
If you had any kind of situation to try to make an appointment, you would have to, if you were lucky, you would sit in the parking lot. They'd come out, they would get your pet, but you couldn't get appointments. What's happening in California is the veterinarians are leaving. Oh. It is also well known that veterinarians, because if they do care, some of them are trained they want to make the money, and other ones are trained because they want. Like I wanted to be a veterinarian, so this is very personal to me, and I'm very good at what I do. I do all external. I'm holistic. I'm preventative. How do we help to prevent? So even now, getting a vet appointment is very, very difficult. Nobody has this anymore. Mm-hmm. They're just
Why
trying.
do the vets want to leave? Because they're not making enough money?
There's a lot of corporations that have bought up the veterinarian clinics, and
really?
So there's a lot of veterinarians that aren't happy, and or they're not trained well enough yet, and it is not necessarily because they care, and or they're held by corporate. You must charge this fee and this fee and this fee. So to walk in the door, most people don't have the money anymore, Fritz.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to expand. That's why some people know that I'm trying to expand. I would like to go to Oregon for many different reasons. One, i.e. my health. I'm allergic to the desert, which I've been telling people, I don't mind. I love my work with the animals. I love my work in the film business, but I can't do both. And I can't do it if I'm allergic to everything, on my property.
Well, talk about your recent you had some very serious health issues recently.
I will get to that part. So I don't know if some people remember I did Masked Singer.
Yeah.
So about 4 years ago, they asked if I wanted to do it. And I said, I can't sing. And I sang on Broadway in Greece. And I sang a little bit in film because I was kind of trying to get into doing title music or something just to expand. Entertainment is entertainment. Mm-hmm. And so I said, I can't sing. And they said, oh, no, we'll make you sound fine. And I said, no, I can't sing. So they sent me to Dr. Nassari, who is the doctor for anybody that is known in the industry, vocal. He's a vocal doctor. And I went in, he said, well, you're allergic to the desert, you have yeast, fungal, and a polyp. So no, you can't sing. But you would do the dog and pony act like you people do. And that is why, if you go back and watch the episode, you'll see me moving and moving and moving.
What was your costume? I do have to ask.
The worst costume on the planet.
Okay.
They made me a pumpkin head. I was so...
there we are.
There I am. Look at that.
Was it Halloween? What was happening?
And I met the mask maker recently, and he said, Linda, I'm so sorry. And he said, they wanted it really big, and I knew that it was throwing your balance off, which is why I kept... It weighed too much.
Wow.
So it's just this large thing. I wish they had done any. The costumes are so beautiful, and I love them so much. And then they show me this pumpkin head, and I'm like, why?
It feels like someone else fell out, and then you got their costume.
I don't know, but I understand that costumer is no longer there, so whatever. But
Pumpkin heads rolled.
Not the mask maker. He's a genius.
Oh, okay.
He's a genius. He's the one. Oh my God, the costumes are so great. But so I did the best that I could, and I think people appreciate. What I did say is, I cannot compete. Like, I can't do a second song. My vocal range, I had to drop way down. So everything is, I'm singing in there.
What was your first song?
That's the only song.
What was it?
Well, I know what it is.
He'll find it. Our geniuses will find
it. We have a research department. His name is Ref.
But the only reason I brought up your health was you said that it would be healthier for you to live in Oregon.
So that is the first indicator where he said, you need to move, Linda. And I can't treat you, and I can't take out the polyp.
The masked singer is saving your life. This is a story.
A few years have gone on, and you're trying to make amends. Last year, so this is my world.
Abracadabra.
That's the one. I would sing it for you, but it wouldn't be pretty. So what I did is I did a lot of swirling and twirling, and I had the dancers, but I couldn't see. Okay. So here's the mask here, right? So the mouth is my eyes.
Okay.
And it's really dark because everybody wants to know where the screens are. I can't answer for other costumes, but mine was my eyes, so it went all the way up here. It was awful, just terrible. And so I'm trying to see. What I didn't know is I also have cataracts. And so good luck. It's pitch black. Yeah. You're on a stage. You cannot see. So it was blind. Everything was blind.
Everybody in the cast.
But one thing I did was I said, I have to harass the judges. I mean, I do have a sense of humor, which some people know. And so I said, no, I have to harass the judges. So that's why. And I just look. And I went, and they went, oh, no. Because Alan Thicke was my very dear friend.
Robin's father.
Yes. And so I knew Robin when he was little because we would do the charity events for diabetes. Yeah. And I used to go to all of their events. So I got up, and just harassed the back of them. And then later, I just, because I miss his dad so much. And Robin is such a
And he had
a
a great career that people weren't even aware of before he had his sitcom. He was a producer in Canada, and he hosted a show.
I knew him from Canada.
Yeah.
That's where I met him. And he was so kind.
And Robin's very talented as well.
Robin is amazing.
Yeah.
So he followed, but I know it hurts. And that's why I really wanted him to know. There are some of us that know his dad and are there. I think sometimes you need that. Mm-hmm. People that knew
continuity to his past. Continuity to his past.
It's a connection.
Yeah, that just is. Listen, this is, do you remember? I remember, and this is what your dad loved, and this is what he was all about. I think that's really important sometimes for some of these young people in the industry to remember there are those that do care. I know when I first came out here, how many old Hollywood types that you wouldn't expect. But they were there for me, Fritz. They would look me in the eye. They knew I wasn't the little girl possessed. They knew that I was being tossed around in the media. From one minute they love you, and you're up for all these awards that I don't even understand, and the next minute they're trying to tear you down. So I am so used to the media and what they can be responsible for, and it's very difficult, especially on young people that are just trying to get past their teen years. You don't know
I want
who
to
you
talk
are.
all about that. I want to talk about your parents and where they were for this part for you.
There's a lot of things I want to talk about.
Okay, well, let me get through. We want to. I want to understand this heroic work that you're doing. So, one of the mandates of Worldheart is to stop pets. You save pets from being euthanized. How does a pet come to be euthanized? These are kill shelters, essentially.
They are.
And how does that work?
So I was born this way. I wanted to be doctor to the animals, as Mom said. And so I worked as a model and in commercials in New York. And then we would go home to Connecticut, where you had nature. You had, skunks and possum and deer. We had a family dog. We had lots of cats. You would, they'd bring home a squirrel or a rat or a snake or whatever and gift us. I learned a lot about life and death. They would be hit by cars, because that's just part of it, and they'd come home to die. So my mother was very compassionate, and so was my father, i.e., he was also military. So he is like this, was. And so he was like, work begets work. So his work ethics are so strong. Mom was the sort that was like, by working and saving, you can achieve your dreams. You can go to the college. I wanted to go to Cornell. So when I was just hitting, I think I just turned 13, and we were driving, if anybody knows New York, FDR Drive, and I had to get the courage up to say, Mom, I do not want to do this anymore. I want to really concentrate on my studies. I rode horses. I was allowed to buy my first pony. She would help take me to horse shows. I eventually, I trained for the Olympics, Fritz. That's what a lot of people forget, that I'm an athlete. And why I am, a vegan, why I believe in preventative care and keeping your body strong and so on. So she said, okay, I understand. With that, literally that week was the call to interview for The Exorcist. Well, it was the big novel. So you had The Godfather, maybe, a year or two before that. Back then, these novels were worldwide. Mm-hmm. And that was it. That was all that was there. There was a few, things to watch on TV. All of that was new. Black and white television. I'm from the time period with the cape over their head, and you stand there, for 10 minutes while they would light, the bathing suit or the winter coat and so on. That is my time period. I'm out of black and white. And so with the interview, I went in and met Juliet Taylor. And so you go in and
she was the casting director.
Yes. And I think they were surprised, because I was a trained child, especially with commercials. You have to hold the product a certain way. You have to know where your mark is. They teach you to feel the light. You have to run up to a position and be in that light and hold the product and then deliver your line, usually happy. And so I was trained in that way. So I think they were really surprised when I did what I was told to do. And I remember, I can see their faces, Fritz. I'm sure they were shocked, because they read this horrible language. Then they're like, okay, can you do it again and be like a little angrier? And so apparently I did a good job.
Oh, my God.
Went downstairs, got in the car, and I thought, I will never tell Mom what just happened. I mean, I was taken back. I didn't know what
So
it
you
all
mean
meant.
About you would never tell your mom about the language? Is that what you mean?
I don't remember the words. I just remember it wasn't polite.
Okay.
You have to remember 73, 72, 70, somewhere in that area.
So-
Well, that answers the question.
You didn't speak that language.
You got this thing without your parents' knowledge, is what it amounted to. You just got called in there and they cast you, and your parents weren't part of the process.
Well, they must have taken her down there.
Well, mom was there. So what they did is they then said a call back, and I met with Billy Friedkin. And then he called back and said, to meet with Mom. So we met with Billy, and then he spoke to Mom, and then he said, I need you both to read the book. And of course, I can't imagine what Mom, I can't ask her. I tried to ask everything that I possibly could. I took care of her the last 6 years with her cancer. So
what you mean,
I don't have any regrets.
What you're trying to say to us is like, as an adult, you're saying, Mom, I was 13 years old. You read this book.
No, I didn't. We didn't have that conversation.
So what do you mean? What information were you trying to get from your mom?
Nothing. What I'm saying is that I went to the car and thought, I'm never going to speak about this. Mm-hmm. But we got the call back. I can't tell you what happened between Billy Friedkin and my mother because I was a child. What I can tell you is what I saw. And I'm working on the autobiography for like the last 25 years. I just wasn't ready. I am now. And I am very sorry that Billy has passed.
Billy was married to a very good friend of mine, Kelly Lang, who she and I live in the same apartment complex.
Oh, okay.
And before he married Sherry Lansing, who he used to come to all of our station functions, and he was a brilliant director.
He was a brilliant man.
Yeah.
But he was also very, very precise. And things happened only because of how he set everything up. He's an amazing, amazing director. But you get those performances because there are certain things that are sacred on the set. So there are things that people think they know, stories they've heard, and these are things that I would like to talk about, to be a child, to go through these experiences. Most people, I don't think, could have made it. I really don't. I really don't.
I'm so curious about that. And how sensitively did Billy direct you and explain to you what was expected of you in some of the harder
The one
moments?
thing I think that is really important is because I was raised Protestant, and this is a story about exorcism, which is Catholicism. I did not believe in the devil. I didn't believe or know. I wasn't raised to be afraid or that you would be punished.
Maybe that was helpful for you.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
And that I just didn't understand why a little girl had to be a monster. That's the part I didn't like. That's the part that was hard for me. A lot of language that's in the movie was not in the screenplay. And Billy would call me up to his office, and we'd sit and talk, at days end, and he'd say, hand me on a piece of paper, here's tomorrow's dialogue. And I would look and go, I can't say that. And he said, yeah, you can. So it was a back and forth tennis match and of course he's going to win. So when I would present this language on the set, that is why many times Max von Sydow would just be like, cut. And he'd say, come here, and walk him off the set. There was a lot of stuff that people, I think they need to know. But
I'm
it's,
glad you're telling us this, because the first thing you think of, particularly if you're a parent, is how did this occur? Was there any parental guidance?
Mom was upstairs always, Fritz. Yeah. Billy knew what he was doing. Mm-hmm. Billy knew what he was doing. First of all, California would never have allowed it, I think.
That's what I wondered. Now, these days,
that's why they went to New York.
Oh, it's shot in New York. Okay, so when you think about what Billy wanted, he wanted something just so ferociously provocative that it would be all anyone was talking about. And it didn't matter what that did to a little girl.
I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff in the book. It is so detailed. What friendship I loved was my friendship with Bill Blatty.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
So Bill, when we were filming...
Who's the author of the book?
Oh, sorry, yes. Sorry. And so I would remember seeing him, and his eyes were so blue. They were like the Mediterranean. You could see them from across the room. What he told me later is why they kept him away from me all the time, that they thought that he was really intense. But as he got older, he was like this teddy bear, grandfather-y, funny. People don't realize he has something to do with the Pink Panther series. And so he was a comedy writer. And he wanted to put Michael through college. And so he told the agency, I'm going to write a dramatic, a scary project. And they're like, Bill, you can't do that if you do. And that's what a lot of people have forgotten. If you did comedy, you didn't do drama. Mm-hmm. If you did television, you didn't do film. Mm-hmm. And if you did film, they would not let you cross over. Mm-hmm. So you have people like Whoopi Goldberg, Elizabeth Taylor went on one of the soap operas, General Hospital, because she loved it. Yeah. But that was like, oh my God, you weren't supposed to do it. So a lot of people were able to start breaking barriers, but it was really, really hard. So what Bill Blatty did is they said, you can't, Bill, write a dramatic piece. And he said, oh, really? Watch me. Because he was trained, he went to school to be a Jesuit. Oh. And so he knew all of these so-called experiences, stories, things that were put in the closet, and he just pulled them all out. So one day I said to him, Bill, why me? You write about a boy. I mean, the true story supposedly is about this boy. Okay. And he just looked at me and he goes, it had to be somebody. That was Bill. There is so many things that he did, and the tapestries that he wove that really, I'm sorry. The one thing when I was 15 and people would look at me, we used to do the big press conferences, they didn't have all the social media, so a lot of people don't realize you would walk into a room of like 500 people from around the world. Like if they took me to England, oh my God, and Japan and Australia. For a young person to have that experience that doesn't understand the media anyway, and then to be asked, about the devil and about this, but you could see the look in their eyes. They really thought I knew the answers, and I'm sitting inside of me looking out going, why do adults think I know these answers? And I don't levitate and I don't turn my head around. And I'm like, I have this only experience and no one else has. But the stories that were headlines that started to come out. And I asked Mom over and over, why are they lying? It was very hurtful. And she said, I don't know, but what I can tell you is always tell the truth and you will always be fine. And that's how I've lived my life. That's why I'm okay. Mm-hmm. So if you want to challenge me, you want to hurt me, animals or kids or this or that, if you have always told the truth and you tell it as it is, you will be fine. You will get attacked in life. And that's what so many people are experiencing right now, losing their homes, losing their apartments. They listen to, go ahead and spend the money. And then all of a sudden they couldn't pay back. But what I see it from my end, so as I became an adult in my 20s, I said, what about me? I have done I did all the first television movies, Born Innocent, Sarah T. Portrait of a Teenage Alcoholic, got to work with Martin Sheen, got to work with Richard Burton, got to work with Leslie Nielsen. I've worked with some masters. And then the industry changed and it became all of the macho, the Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Stallones, and there was like no work. Right. Jodie Foster went to Canada, studied, I love Jodie. I love Jodie. And so she went, Melanie Griffith married Don Johnson, had a family, and then a lot of people kind of did their thing and then came out. I had to continue to work. I was still, so I had found a world with riding horses and training. I trained for the Olympics. That was my love. But it's very expensive. Yeah. So you have to work to pay that bill. I didn't choose to marry. Mom used to say to me, why don't you marry an athlete? And I'd say, why don't I not?
Let me ask you something. So you came out of what is, on the list of top 50 horror movies, The Exorcist has to come out on top every single time. It just shook people to their core. Was there a typecasting issue beyond that? Could you get considered for anything else?
Well, you would remember, Fritz. Do you remember the first TV movies? That was me. So now Billy Friedkin puts me with William Morris. You are on the treadmill, and what a lot of people don't understand is the level of who you are, money that you can bring in, and so on. So they need me to work. So first they put me in Airport 75. And Mom and I I only had a honey wagon. And Mom and I sat on our stairs, and you'd watch, here goes George Kennedy, and here goes Ben-Hur, and here goes Karen Black, and here goes Gloria Swanson, and we're just doing this going, huh? What? Well, you didn't know what to do. And everybody was so kind and so amazing. Charlton Heston stood out in my mind that's Moses. Ben-Hur. And so everybody treated us so well. Sitting with Gloria Swanson, I have that memory. I got to sit with her, and she was giving me tips and secrets, and I held them, and close to my heart. Oh, okay. But there was a lot of conversation with some of the young people about the studio contracts and how much they needed. Eric Estrada befriended my mother, and Mom would talk to me at night and say he would talk about the studio contract. They were really worried. He didn't know if they could still get one. So I knew about this at a young age. I was independent. I didn't have the luxury of like a Brat Pack where I had other actors in a series. It was all me. So they put me first. I needed a kidney transplant in Airport 75. And then I did Born Innocent, which was the first time anything had been discussed about child abuse. Why the character Christina ran away. How when she went through the court system, went through the detention center, that she came out harder than she went in. It was to make a point. Then they put me in Sarah T. Portrait of a Teenage Alcoholic. Mark Hamill was my boyfriend and unknown at that time. I will forever, and he knows that. He was so helpful to me to understand structure and change a conversation and things that I hadn't been trained in. And then Larry Hagman, hello. I Dream of Jeannie, hello. Was my dad? Oh, come on. Fritz, it was like, for me, it was so amazing.
Well, it sounds like you didn't really, they invited you to do Airport 75, which is funny and interesting and all that, right?
No, that's Airplane.
Oh, I'm thinking of Airplane. That's
yeah,
right.
It's okay.
I'm so sorry.
But
was it hard for you to get non-horror oriented movies just because you were such an icon in that field?
I think because they just made The Machine, and it was the first TV movies ever done, and then I got to work with Martin Sheen, which was insane. He's just so amazing. Then it was just they wanted to do that Exorcist II. And I said, no. My dad had something to do with meeting somebody. When they came to me with Richard Burton, what would you say, Fritz? What would you say?
I heard it.
John Borman just won the Academy Award. You, Richard Burton, I was such a fan of Burton's work. And to be able, no one can take that from me. And it is an experience. I can't tell you how electrifying it is to work with somebody. Why, when good actors are put together that have that relationship and magic, why it's so magical. And you can put actors together that do not get along, and you will hear those stories. So it was because things are starting to change and it was becoming more macho. That's why it became harder. So you do the little pieces, I've gone back and seen some comedy stuff that I did. And I'm like, I don't remember doing that, but I can see, why I did it. And that was a cute little girl, and I was like, you were cute, and you were funny. I did Repossessed with Leslie Nielsen. And the person that believed in me the most was Murray Langston, the unknown comic.
Really?
And, of course, he's still around. But I knew Murray since I was 15 because Kitty wins. Kitty Bruce, somehow I met her. And that was when I was dating Rick Springfield. And a lot of people didn't understand that my mother took such good care. And I will write about it in the book, how that it was like a Romeo and Juliet. We were very, very close still, very protective. But Kitty would pick me up at the airport and drive me, into the city and to Rick's. Mom knew. My sister sometimes was out while I was working, and everything was fine. But she introduced me to Murray Langston. And who didn't love Murray Langston? For those that don't know, he's the one the unknown comic who wears the bag on his head and tells really stupid jokes. He
lives in Tehachapi. He still performs.
And he just believed in me always. So we did the unknown comic movie, which became Night Patrol. So if you go back and look, and Billy Barty's in it, and I want to say Johnny Dark. Then we did Up Your Alley, and that was with Ruth Buzzy, who, of course, Laughing. I got to work with all of these incredible comedians that I had grown up with, and these were such sweet movies and passion, projects of passion that we did. So I did, but maybe a little unnoticed by the industry as much as you might like. I think it's more open now. It really is about what are you worth? And that's who gets hired for certain things. And then there's others that see beyond. But what happened, so in the 80s when I said, what about me? And then soon after, 89 I was out doing a play, Pat Paulson, Murray Langston in San Francisco. Mom was diagnosed with cancer. And I went nuts. And she said, I beg you not to tell. I went on the news right away. Please help me. Please help me. And she was so angry. Didn't matter. I went home and I stayed with her pretty much until the end. I wanted to be her friend. I, cleaned out the house. I did whatever. I drove her to the beach, picked up her friends. I, chauffeured them. We'd go down and we'd have pizza on the beach, and Long Island Sound is right there. I did everything that I could back for her that she wanted. I'd buy her little jewelry. She wasn't really, that type of person, but something to make her feel special. I painted. I was her friend. And asked everything that I could. And I realized she just grew up because back then, the Protestant and Catholics, there was an issue back then. I found an engagement ring in her drawer when she was in the hospital, and I went, who's George? What's this engagement ring? I didn't give the finger, by the way. And so I went in and said, Mom, who's George? And she just said, oh, George. And she told the story that they were engaged, and his family said, we'll pay you not to marry him because you're not a Catholic. Oh. And it broke her heart. So there's so many stories. So every time people is judgmental, and to understand our parents and grandparents and the history, have respect. Yeah. That they've gone through so much for us to be here. That's who I am. But eventually, Fritz, what happened after you and I got off the fishing boat and the trip, and you and I did this fundraising, I saw the charities that I was working for, not necessarily using the money as I would like. We needed to end puppy mills. We needed the spay neuter. We needed to stop dog fighting. All these things. And so I became a nonprofit in 2003 because now I'm on an equal level. Maybe I don't make the money, all the big money, but I'm on equal level to speak on issues and to act on issues. So if you follow back, you'll see I'm the one that drove the anti-dog fighting. And I went all over the country because where you have dog fighting, you're going to have crime. When you have crime, you're going to have the youth. So it is to understand the path and how I think and the programs that I was trying to set up, that even law enforcement was like, yeah, absolutely. But you got to have the money to enforce these programs and law enforcement and so on. So I am now, in 2005, I'd just gotten back from doing Grease on Broadway. I had the opportunity. Dad was alive. I needed to make him, I wanted to make him proud. And that first night and every night when I walked out on stage, and I would say, Mom, we did it. She never saw Broadway for me, but I did it for her. I did it for them. Scary, hard, the commitment. You'll really start to hear people talk about it now. It is the physicality and keeping your voice. It was really, really hard. And walking a dog every day. There was no doggy daycare. There was no. I thought there was a doorman. I'd always been told. Well, I didn't have one.
Isn't there supposed to be a doorman?
I walked in morning.
I ask that every morning.
I have so many questions I want to ask you about this work you're doing now. Go ahead.
So then I got back from that, and that is when in 2005, suddenly, I was rescuing out of the LA shelters, South Central, North Central, the valleys, And then I'd take them to the vet, you would quarantine, and then you'd put their little pictures up at a pet store or whatever, and then somebody would call and you go meet them in a park or something and go do a home check. That's the simplicity of it. All of a sudden, this threat of a breed ban. What is a breed ban? It is when there was a lot of prejudice, there was a lot of miscommunication, misunderstanding, and just a lot of hate is a good way to put it.
Pit
towards
bulls,
a specific
Rottweilers,
breed.
Dobermans.
And then exactly, it expanded. And that's what people didn't realize. To the German Shepherd, the family dog of America.
Wow.
There was even standard
Rin Tin
poodles.
Tin, is it?
Standard poodles on the list. This is how crazy. So I fought in Sacramento. I had called the large groups. I'm not going to name them. Everybody knows who they are. And they said, "Excuse me, what? Talk to our attorney." So I did. They knew darn well, and they went neutral on me. So it was just me up in Sacramento and a few other rescues. And we fought tooth and nails. We were well prepared. And so we stopped the ban of many, many breeds of dogs, but not the...
They call them bully breeds, correct? Is that
Yeah, they do. Mm-hmm. That has become a term along the way. Mm-hmm. Can be even a mastiff. It is just... I didn't.
And you made a couple of interesting quotes on your website. You said, "No, any dog can bite, but no dog is programmed to bite." What I mean is, it's all about the owner. It's not about the dog.
There is so much abuse out there, Fritz, and I don't want to get into cultures, but that can have to do with it. But I think there's a lot of young people and some culture differences on what is a guard dog. Now, I can tell you this. When I grew up, and you might pass a junkyard, and you'd see a dog chained up. When I was young, it would break my heart. But then later, all of a sudden, people had guard dogs. That became new. When did it happen? Charles Manson.
Wow.
I know so much history. People would, I'm an encyclopedia of history.
You are connecting a lot of dots.
Mm-hmm. So there's so much that I know out of my own curiosity and why they are not considered, a sentient being, why they are a possession, why you can own, because we don't believe that you should be able to own. I believe it's a privilege to have, and you should be. I believe the people should be licensed, not the animals. You need to be licensed to prove that you can have, and that you understand, and that you are accountable and responsible for that particular dog. As a rescue, we don't use the word ownership because technically and legally, and you can get into also, it is not defined. They are under our care. Mm-hmm. So with that said, I hadn't even breathed coming back from that fight. And we'd already fought in Colorado. His name was Charlie Brown. And he's the one that enacted the ban in Denver and killed thousands upon thousands of pit bulls. Oh, you couldn't have one within 60 miles of Denver.
The ban was on breeding them or owning them?
Within
owning
50
them.
miles of Denver, you couldn't have a pit bull.
Mm-mm. He killed a lot of dogs. People were
God.
running for their lives. Wow. Anything that was that type, it was horrible what happened.
And how would you, if a dog was in a kill shelter where if he's not adopted after a certain period of time, they would euthanize him, where do you come into play? You come and see these circumstances and then get those dogs out of there.
So when I started, I would walk the shelters. They would tell you they may or may not tell you who's going to be euthanized. Do you remember Gretchen Weiler?
Yes. Okay,
Gretchen is my mentor. So for those of you who don't know Gretchen, she came off of Broadway, came out here, and she started what was called the Genesis Awards, ARC Trust Foundation. She is unfortunately no longer with us, and she was my main mentor, but she's the one that put into place what was called like the red tag, where the shelters were forced to notify who was going to be euthanized instead of me going to the shelter to pick up a dog that I had made a promise to And you get there, and they were no longer alive. They're, sorry, Linda, you missed. Sorry, Linda, the dog was euthanized this morning. That was a huge problem. And if you weren't there at 5 o'clock because of traffic or a rainstorm or anything, the dog was dead. They did not hold. So we do have a couple things in place that Gretchen set up and a few others so that we can get the dogs out. There are laws now where if we say we're interested, you may not kill that dog.
So red
a period of
tagging
time.
means they would identify these dogs ahead of time before they were killed, so you could do whatever you wanted to
So
do.
we would know who was on the euthanasia list. That is what we get every single day, who will be killed, who will be killed, who will be killed.
How many are you talking about on a weekly basis?
I would say at least 1,000 in California.
A week? Wow.
You have to remember all the puppies, Fritz.
Yeah.
California has the worst pet overpopulation in the United States.
I say that we are one of, because you have to look at Colorado's got all the puppy mills. You have to look at Texas that is so expansive. You have to look at Oklahoma and Pennsylvania. It goes on and on. You have to look at the South. So we just know better here. That is why I'm so angry. We know better. The money is here. You can look at the license plate. That's it, spay neuter license plate. Follow where the money is. Where is it?
What did Governor...
Where is that money? Pierce Brosnan presented it. I'm still trying to find it.
What did Governor Newsom say?
After he thanked me profusely, and after I presented the 14-page, very eloquent document and what was about to happen and how we can be better than, I was blown off and told to go to UC Davis. I said, what does that have to do with anything? That's where the money is. The money is at UC Davis, and I was requesting that it be given to the shelters.
And what is UC Davis?
$5,000 grants from
Yeah,
UC
yeah,
Davis
I mean, where does
is
that work?
not okay. That is what they offer the shelters. They need $50,000, $250,000, $500,000. The money is there. Enough. It needs to go to the shelters, and that's what I was asking.
Okay,
And-
in Worldheart, because we want you're out there. You're like Pluto out in the solar system. No,
What does that mean,
No, it
Fritz?
means you're fighting this battle alone. You don't have a huge corporate entity behind you. You're just trying to do this out of conscience and love and your own hard work. So we want to help you raise money to do what you do. I want to know some facts. How much does it cost you to house a dog after you've saved him from euthanasia?
So, in the old days, and or most rescues, they do not have a property. So they have to board the dog. What is the boarding cost? We used to be able to get maybe a deal for $10, $15. Now it's $25 minimum, could be more. So you have that, then you have vet care. Has the dog, is there medical conditions that, how much is the medical condition? Are you talking a broken leg? Are you talking some kind of skin, some kind of whatever, heart, whatever medical condition? A lot of groups like to take that on. What I did after this situation in Sacramento, I hadn't even rested, and Hurricane Katrina happened, Fritz. You were still working back then, weren't you? You know what it paralyzed this country. So I was renting in Burbank. I had my retired show horse who would stand at the door, do everything but come into the house. I had chickens. I had turkeys. I had dogs. And I was paralyzed. So there was a girl there named Jane Garrison. She was the one for anybody that wants to go back and see the picture of somebody in the water with the rowboat, with the boat. That was Jane. I get a call because there was so much misinformation. So I'm working with a certain group that I'm not going to name, and they said, we need the governor, we need the police chief, we need boats with 3-man crew. We need, and I am literally on the phone every day, all hours of the day, trying to find all these things. So what I did is I sponsored a bigger trailer from Watermelon Ranch out of New Mexico that went down, and they could back the trailer in down into New Orleans and pull out 40 and 50 animals at a time. To me, that seems smart. So I sponsored that trailer. I was having a lot of trouble with finding crews. Good luck getting through to the police chief. And all of this was new. The devastation, the tragedy, and so on. So I get a call from Jane saying, you need to get down here. And I said, word out is that you're not letting people in. Talk to Oprah Winfrey's people who just been at the Civic Center, and they said, don't go. And I said, oh, no, I have to go. This is what I do. You did human. And I understand how scary and how horrible. And I cannot get the images of what those people locked up in that building. People forget no toilet, no sanitary conditions, what women went through, and
it
babies.
was 100 degrees.
They had no medicine.
Yeah.
People forget the smells, the sickness that was in there. I don't know why I can't get past this. I still have some PTSD from being down there.
Oh, so you actually went
she went to
down.
rescue the animals.
So Jane said, you need to get down here. So I got the last ticket that I could, the last car that I could find, truck, went to Big Five, got my sleeping bag, I got my Gatorade powders, I got my nut bars, I got all of that, whatever, little toilet bags. And if you are a camper and you are an earthly person, you get it. And if you're not, you're just not. I'm not a city dweller, and I'm an outdoor rugged person. So off I go. I get down there, and Jane got me all signed in. It's a lot of government official paperwork and everything. And Jane proceeded to get cat scratch fever and left me in charge.
Oh, my gosh.
And so I had some friends with HSUS. So I'm going down the city. I'm telling you how devastating it was. It was unbelievable. You're watching cars and boats on top of houses. It was silent. There wasn't nothing. There's no birds. There's no nothing. You don't know silence until you hear silence. And so they came to me and said, here's our problem. We have shipped all of the pictures you see of the dogs on the plane and all these things, and everybody's going, yay. Well, they were shipping them out in 100 animal loads, dogs and cats, including pit bulls, to all the different shelters around the country. It had to be 100. Upon impact, the pit bulls were all euthanized, saying they had heartworm. Nobody wanted them. And so I ended up with a job that said remove the remaining 351 animals in 4 days, or they will kill them. Louisiana will kill them. They want their fairgrounds back. I had a couple friends there. We worked tirelessly, and the biggest problem was they didn't let out the little groups, the rescue groups. You had to be brick and mortar, and so that's why I'm brick and mortar now, so it never happens again. But we managed. I took 51. It was called Lucky 51, and they put me in a tractor trailer, not me, but the animals. I drove my car over to Mississippi, and I camped there with these dogs, got a vet. Finally, other people, volunteers, started coming, and then PetSmart was kind enough to send their rescue wagon. I am sitting in Mississippi with, certainly no air conditioning, the bugs, I can't even tell you, and these dogs were dying. Got other groups to come down and help me with the sick ones, and then I traveled across country to New Mexico, and from New Mexico got them all the health care that they needed, the veterinarian care, and then bought a used motorhome and drove them to L.A. And long story short, every day I would get them out. I know, it's quite the story. And then I had to talk to Dad. And I had to say, Dad, do not be angry with me. I need to take a little break. And I need to buy a property, and I need to keep my word to these animals. Give me 2 years. And I promise I'll go back to work. 18 years, Fritz.
All
that
right.
has passed. I need to keep my word to him. And that is, I want to do better. I love the industry. People don't know what happened to me. And I'm telling, it's time that people know what happened, that I've been stuck on the mountain doing my job. You've asked me over and over, how do we know they're being killed? What is going on? So as The spay and neuter is like $600 now. Nobody can afford that. We get, some special deals as we can. The shelters had vouchers. I went on TV last year, voucher, we're here to help. I don't know where the vouchers are. I don't know what's going on, but people can't afford it. They really can't. So what I would like to do is expand. I love education. I like directing. I like entertaining. I find when I'm, to be personable, and that I have... Mom taught me, read, be self-taught. And I have ability to, like you all, to talk to some of the most intelligent, interesting, intellectual, educated people in the different departments. I know the same amount of people. Bring them forward. Let's communicate. Talk about prevention. Talk about what can be done. Talk about why. The environment is so very important. Right now, as we sit, we all have witnessed this most horrific situation yet again, the fire that is happening down in Pacific Palisades. It devastates all of us to watch it happen. Our friends are there. I know how many animals are down there and people can't get back. They're not letting them back in. It happened in Malibu. It's now there. All these places. Don't think it can't happen to you, because
so would
it
you
can.
like this place in Portland that you see? Will that be a facility where you will house dogs and it'll be like acreage?
It'll be somewhere within so that people can come and be guests and so on. I need a ranch. Obviously, we've been looking and looking. It has to be specific to have enough room for not only, so to be dogs, cats, some farm animals. I want to have the hands-on programs for kids, and I want to teach about why, if you have a small orchard, apple trees, pumpkins, hello, I was Pumpkinhead, come on, and berries and so on. But in between plantings, there are certain things that are planted to replenish the earth. Howard Lyman, one of my main mentors, people should look up his book. It's called Mad Cowboy. He was the head of HSUS, Humane Society of the United States, and I am lucky enough to call him friend. He was third-generational farmer, and his father had said to him, son, you can't take that technology and you can't continue you've got to give the earth a rest. So he got cancer. He told God, if you let me survive, I will tell the truth about farming, the pesticide use, the ranching. Why am I a vegan? I'm a vegan for a very big reason. A, environmentally, it's correct. B, I don't eat animals. I don't abuse anything to live. And that's just the way that I am. I would like to see the world last. I think we all do. But we have so many environmental effects right now. And that this fire, the floods, so much that is happening, little late on the prevention side, but we can still pull some things back, but it must happen now.
What can if one of our smart listeners is listening and is very touched by your mandate, what can we do for you?
What we need is support. So what we're doing, Fritz, is that I have chosen to go public with saying this crisis is beyond. It is beyond, and I would like to grow. I would like to move for my health, and I think people would respect. You can hear I'm fine. I want to make sure people see I am okay. I have fought a great fight. I'm tired, as any of us are. The other part of it is that this is my worldwide launch to tell. I unfortunately had a horrific reaction to my thyroid medicine. And didn't matter how much I complained to the doctors, I found myself flat on my back a year ago and hospitalized. And I have been in recovery this whole year, 113-degree temperatures in the condition that I was in, and yet I still persevered. I still did it. So for anybody that says, it's your will, it's your strength, it's your desire to continue to make change. But I wanted people to see me and realize I am not down. I am only getting better and stronger. What they always say, if it doesn't kill you, makes you stronger.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
let's click. Is it okay, Fritz, if we wrap up with a round of IMDb roulette?
Oh, of course it is, yes.
Because we are running a little bit late on.
So it's my
time.
birthday fundraiser online, and anybody can support us, and anybody can help. You can get hold through the website, through our social media.
Give us the website.
We'll have all the links. We'll have all the links in the
LindaBlairWorldheart.org.
Linda Blair
Instagram,
Worldheart.
Linda Blair WF. It's all up there, and then my Linda Blair celebrity stuff is, I think, real Linda Blair, and that would be just more the work based. So I do want to go back to work, but I need to fix this problem, and I see it by moving, expanding, and inviting people to come, which is
Absolutely.
very difficult to do. But we have a lot of animals to save in Los Angeles, so I want to bring them out. Please go to your shelters. Please support your rescue groups. Please know this is the biggest crisis. Don't wait till next week. Oh, I got to go vacation, whatever. These animals are dying.
Let's go. Let's get it done.
So-
All right. This is a quick round of a game we play called IMDb Roulette. And what happens is, Linda Blair, you have 77 IMDb credits. I'm going to name a credit.
And just I have to say that I
Yeah.
saw my IMDb recently and went, I don't know half the movies that are on there.
All right. Well, you
and
may
I
be
haven't been
horrible.
on there to clean it up. So
You may be horrible at playing our game.
but
but
let's have
remember,
fun.
But we know the answer,
That-
so don't worry about it. It's all
So
good.
let's have
I
fun.
have the teacher's master test right in front of me.
I-
so we
so
have all
good,
the answers.
So good.
And number one, and you're going to know a lot of these because I picked fun ones that people want to hear more about. So you tell us, if you can, who you played and any fun memory about being on the set. So number one is going to be Airport 1975.
Okay, well, I did kind of talk about that just a little bit ago. George
Yeah.
Kennedy, Charlton Heston, Karen Black, Gloria Swanson. I was a little girl that had needed a kidney transplant, and I got to go down a slide on a football player's lap, and I was scared.
Ooh,
And he was very nice.
who was the football player?
I would say if I remembered.
All right, we can look that up. But you went down a slide to exit.
Well,
the
that's
plane,
how it was an
Yeah.
emergency landing. I know.
and
Please
and there
forgive
was a
me.
kidney waiting at the bottom of the slide, right?
It wasn't waiting.
Okay.
I don't know whatever happened to me.
I'm sure she's fine. You played Janice Abbott, and I'm sure she's fine. Number two, Sarah T., a portrait of a teenage alcoholic. Now, that wasn't an after-school special, right? That was an at-night movie?
I'm the first one that ever made a television movie. Yeah, I created the 8 p.m. viewing hour that doesn't exist anymore. So first it was Born Innocent, and then it was Sarah T. Portrait of a Teenage Alcoholic. So if you ask me, the first thing comes to mind is Larry Hagman, I Dream a Genie, and then Mark Hamill, who is an unknown that taught me so much that I am forever in his debt. And then Carol Lawrence slapped me across the face on camera to get tears because you could do that back then.
Oh, my
Wow.
goodness. Okay, you played Sarah Travis.
That's my recall.
And she, okay.
Was
And-
I surprised?
And she's doing fine. Sarah's doing fine. She's
Yep.
just,
Yep.
it was traumatic. Okay, number three is Victory at Entebbe.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember?
I was 17. Warner Brothers, across the lot, Kurt Russell. Started dating Kurt Russell. I dated Kurt Russell, and oh my goodness, my brother was with me. So that was very interesting to date Kurt Russell. My brother, he was with me as my chaperone, and he was so shy. There's more stories that go with that, but basically it was such an ensemble cast. It was really amazing, but I don't have much memory past that.
Well, you played what I'm sure is a real person, Chana Vilnovsky, and I bet she was on that plane. And so you were in a lot of
would be me.
planes, it seems. Number four, you're going to like this one. Number four is Roller Boogie.
Don't we all love Roller Boogie?
Sure.
That is such a classic. Those that are out there, I mean, it's actually a cult classic. So what happened was Bruce Cone Curtis, who produced Born Innocent, he then, I was in Connecticut, and anyway, they brought me out for Roller Boogie, and they brought me out for a movie called something with roller skating, and about a week or two, I brought my horses out. I had my dogs. I had moved out here to the valley, and it got canceled.
Oh.
And so all of a sudden, it was 24 hours later, Bruce came with Roller Boogie and was like, wait, what? How would you see that in me? And remember, we were talking about typecasting, but he always did. So they put me to work. So I skated 6 days a week, all day long. Then we did like the hot yoga. Oh, that was awful. Oh my God. But they hired somebody who just was, she cracked the whip. I would not have been able to skate at all like that if it hadn't been for her, tenacity to just be the best you can be. Work harder. You had to. But they didn't know what to do about the male. So we tested a lot of people, including Patrick Swayze, but he wasn't, a lot of people, they weren't known. And then later, but nobody could do the lifts. The males couldn't skate either. So they went to the semi-professional Jimmy Bray, and we had to learn to do lifts together.
Wow.
Do the gym, but I had the gymnastic background, so I could lift, and I could do the posing and so on. And he really carried me through a lot of it. And Jimmy Van Patten was part of that. I was the adopted Van Patten daughter.
Sure. In
case people didn't realize that Dick Van Patten did adopt me.
No, that's a great family to join.
Oh yeah, I think so. So, yeah, we had that. It was so much fun. And I'm very proud of it.
All
Okay,
right.
So we have. Well, we're not done. Fritz.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have number 5, Scream.
So, Wes, when I was 19, and Wes Craven was presented to me to direct the movie Stranger in the House. And I had directorial rights. But they explained to me who he was and why he should direct it. He'd done a movie called The Hills Have Eyes. So I kind of trusted my team. And I'm like, okay. That's how Wes and I became such good friends, and what I was able to witness, and why I have certain thoughts about how he did end up with the brain tumor, why he saw things different, why he was so kind of collegiate, smart, intelligent, and laughing, and then all of a sudden this dark side would come out of Wes. And I was like, where is this coming from? I think we had a little something else going on within the brain, because it was a brain tumor, as far as I understand.
Wow.
But so I get this phone call from Wes, and he said, I'm up doing Scream, and everybody is in the office going, where's Linda Blair? Why is she not here? And he said, Linda, I didn't write anything for you, but they want you to come up and play. We want you to come play, so I'll write you a little something. So up I go. All my friends are there. La 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 la. And then he writes me obnoxious reporter.
Yeah.
And all I remember is him going, "Be more obnoxious." And that was the one that I was like, I don't wanna be more obnoxious. Anyway, that was Scream.
So
I know we've gone long, but can I throw one in?
yeah.
Well, all right.
Well, you need to be on mic, Dina.
Just, you can relay it to the mic. My favorite Linda Blair movie, Savage Street.
Savage Street.
Okay. I don't.
You were a girl.
I was a girl. No. I was dating a stunt coordinator. I have had many interesting boyfriends in my life.
Let me tell you something. You should have your own wing in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah. We have to ask one question about interesting boyfriends.
No, wait.
No, we didn't answer
Okay,
her
he's a
question.
stunt
Yeah, no, you go
coordinator.
ahead.
But I have a lot of boyfriends that served in the military.
Okay.
And the stories are not pretty. And they are also the ones that helped me to understand my dad and the war. Again, respect for your elders, like I had said. When you learn what actually goes on the war field and what was happening, it's it'll take you back. It'll stop you in your tracks. But he was working on a movie. They needed a lead. He said, why don't you do it? And so that's how Savage Street, that's how I got involved with it. It wasn't anything my agent gave. It was something like, a bunch of friends, let's have some fun. And Linnea Quigley, who played my sister, she and I are very close. She also rescues, so we kind of try to look out for each other. And it's a cult classic. So, yeah, we had fun.
Right,
Okay, so wait,
websites.
one quick boyfriend-related question. Is it true that Rick James wrote, what's the name of the song?
No, it is not. I know what you're going to ask.
Okay. Wait, what's the name of the
He
song?
did write Cold-Blooded.
Yeah.
No, Cold-Blooded he did.
Oh.
And I asked him, I don't get it. So understand, I know. Rick was at the top of the game. He was Elvis Presley. There isn't anybody that can ever say he was a genius, he was a master. So he asked to meet me. And I was like, wait, what? So basically, Rick and I are both Aquarians. He is a master, he is a genius. It was an honor to be in his presence. What the problem was, Rick was a drug addict. Something that I did not adhere to, did not accept. There are so many celebrities and stars and things that I would talk about in the book. There were many of us that tried to help him. He was one of the funniest people you ever meet. He created most of his music within a half an hour. He was a genius. What he wasn't was I was the arm candy. I was there for a reason to try to give an image. But it was very difficult. Nowadays, it wouldn't matter. But back then, the hatred and the prejudice and what. So I was with him a lot as support. But unfortunately, Rick had nothing. There was nothing. He was very tortured. And we kind of call them tortured angels. So I was there trying to help a public figure that couldn't. There was no partnership.
He wasn't receiving help.
Oh no, we helped him through rehab. We did all kinds, but I'm saying I was there to try to help, support, and keep the bad people. I couldn't keep the bad people, the ones that are, and finally it was a matter of saying I refuse to be in a situation with those people. Mm-hmm. Hell no. Mm-hmm. And so people have been very, they misunderstand that whole situation. And I want to explain, you sometimes have to try.
Yeah. But
at some point, you also have to walk away.
Yes.
And so it put me in a situation. He wanted the girl in his arm. He liked, he admired me. Mm-hmm. And so that was fun for him. But I was never allowed around half the stuff that those guys did. He wouldn't. He was like, get her out of here.
Good.
So
it
he
was just
protected
arm candy,
you.
really.
Yeah.
And I tried. I did. It's a very sad story. It really, really is.
He was from Buffalo, New York, and I worked in Buffalo for 4 years.
Did you? Yeah.
And he was a huge star. Mm-hmm. We would go into a nightclub or something, and he would come in at night, and the seas would part. He was huge.
It was hard to understand what it was like to be around him. It was very much like Elvis, and planes and limos and things and anything. It was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. All right, we got to raise you some money. Anyway, here's her book called Going Vegan, which is the reason why she became a healthy person. And people may want to help you. So what website can they go to find out how to make donations to Worldheart?
So it's lindablairworldheart.org. And there it is right there.
Look at the
that was
doggy.
Tony.
Oh, look, dog food.
Doggy.
And on social media, Instagram, Linda Blair WF. And I think that's close enough. And look at all the fun stuff that you can see. You can watch my performance in Masked Singer.
Ooh.
You can watch a lot of different things. And you'll get an idea. So I am the one that's hands-on. I'm the one that interviews people for the adoptions. I'm the matchmaker. I give lessons. I do all kinds to make sure it's all good. I stay in touch and so on. I would just want to teach more. I want to educate more. I want to grow. So if there's anybody, your $5 can help. But if somebody is out there that has more to offer, please do get hold of us and let me know, because I need help. It's hard to hold two properties at once. I think just in
general terms, people are going to be so happy to hear that you're thriving and you're doing good work, because a lot of people might not know what the arc of your life since you were famous.
Fritz, how does anybody stay... unless you're on TV and you're on the front page of everything and you're any blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
How do you keep track of anybody with all this social media?
No.
Moms are going, okay, what are my kids into? Dads are going, da, 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 da.
100%.
I don't know how you all do any of this stuff.
You're in their hearts and they want to know. And so this is a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
Here come our closing credits. Thank you for coming along down the Media Path with us. You will find us on Instagram and Blue Sky, where we are at Media Path Pod, and on Facebook, where our show page is Media Path Podcast, and our Facebook group is Media Path Path with Fritz and Wheezy podcast community. We are also a video podcast on YouTube where you get to see us and then you can judge our appearance. We also have a lot of added visual treats. Linda is very beautiful. Fritz and I are present. Watch, like, and subscribe at Media Path Podcast. Write to us at mediapathpodcast@gmail.com. Kindly give us a nice rating wherever you get your podcasts and share our social media posts because that's a big help to us. My TikTok is Louise Palanker. Fritz has a TikTok that's, what's his TikTok, Dina?
Dormant.
No, it's got his name, Fritz Coleman.
It's the real Fritz Coleman.
The real Fritz Coleman on TikTok. And you have another 2 weeks to enjoy the TikTok. Check there for clips, special features, and behind-the-scenes adventures. Our website is mediapathpodcast.com. There you can catch up on episodes and binge our spicy newsletter. It's loaded with photos and quizzes and backstage gossip. We want to thank our wonderful guest, Linda Blair. So much to offer from Linda. Our team includes producer Dina Friedman, John Maddox, Bill Filipiak, Mason Brown, Raf Rusak, Jordan Reyes, and you. Our theme music is by me and John Maddox. I'm Louise Palanker here with Fritz Coleman and Linda Blair. Be well and wise, and we will see you along the media path.
I'm so thankful you came on today.
You know all about Linda Blair.
Did we do good?
You did great.
You're a great storyteller. We didn't even have to be.